Forewarn weather with Ashlee Baracy.
Well, starting with a look at satellite and radar, you can see our next weather maker that's just off to the west. And so that swath of moisture, we have quite a bit of heavy rain and a few embedded thunderstorms riding along this frontal boundary, pushing through Iowa, close to Milwaukee. And it will continue to ride along these tracks, making its way to southeastern Michigan later on this evening and throughout a chunk of your Thursday. So temperatures right now as you step out the door, likely in the 70s. We've had a couple areas fall to 68, and that includes Ann Arbor, Lapeer, and Port Huron. And 74 at Metro Airport, 73 in the city, and 73 in Grosse Ile. So actually Metro is our warmest spot on the map right now. Let's check out our high temperatures compared to what it's going to feel like today. So mid to upper 80s is what we're forecasting for a high, but likely feeling like we are in the low 90s in some spots because we're still holding on to some humidity before that drier air mass builds in behind the rain. So heat risk will be much more prominent as you work south of the state line, especially along the Ohio River down into Florida, up the eastern seaboard towards New York and Boston. And that does even clip as far west as the eastern part of Texas. But for today, we just have one more day to get through. We'll be in the 80s, and those chances for storms develop around the dinner hour. And at that point, it's still very isolated. It becomes a little more numerous once we get past sunset, far more widespread into your Thursday morning. Hour by hour look at what we have. So I've stopped the clock at 6:30, and that's where we pick up maybe that isolated downpour. So we have that little chance there, a little more numerous by 10, 11 o'clock, and then the widespread stuff will arrive through the overnight into the early morning. And so we're talking about before daybreak, some heavy rain, maybe even some gusty winds, and this will continue to push eastward. So it'll be heavier to our south, but I'm not ruling out some light rain a little farther north you go, and we still could have a few lingering sprinkles as we head into mid to late afternoon tomorrow. But then by the evening into Friday, into Saturday and beyond, we will have drier air. So it's a day game over at Comerica Park today. Plan for it to be warm and muggy. We start in the 80s and stay there, continuously rising with increasing clouds throughout the game. It's going to be a warm one, but it should be dry for the Tigers game. High temperature forecast falling into the upper 70s the next 2 days. And this is showing you what our average highs are. So we are dipping below average, which we're not quite used to after a really warm July that we have had. But we're back in that seasonal territory heading into Saturday and Sunday. We're talking low 80s. Heading to Canton, Ohio for the game against the Chargers. The game, Lions taking on the Chargers, 8 o'clock. And we will have the chance for some storms in Canton, Ohio come Thursday for that 8 o'clock kickoff. It'll be warm and muggy, but some lingering rain could be around. So I just want to make sure you're prepared for that. Otherwise, low 80s Saturday, Sunday. We do rise back into the mid 80s for early next week, but we do start a drier stretch Friday through the weekend.
There has been some flooding in parts of Hawaii, and it sounds unusual to say like, oh, 3 to 5 foot waves in Hawaii. They get bigger waves than that. Well, some sides of the islands do, but when it hits the other sides, you know, obviously 3 to 5 is significant.
Yeah. I mean, just thankfully they dodged this, and I mean, but they say it's downgraded, but you know, they're still not out of the water yet, so to speak, you know, because of it.
Right, and you know, the one thing that we haven't touched on, because, you know, there could be 1 to 2 foot waves that continue with the advisory, is the impact that's also going to have on folks that go into the water along these beaches, the currents, things like that. So, I mean, obviously it's been downgraded, which is great news, but there's still going to be different kinds of threats when it comes to just not just the sea level, but also those currents, and if you have any kind of concern swimming in that water.
And we did see a little bit of a surge there. It was a marina parking lot earlier this morning. We saw that was kind of flooded over. That was in Hawaii. That was on the North Shore where they do get bigger waves normally. So that was one of those areas where, and we should point out, we talked to Dr. Rose Moten, who's in Maui. We talked to her live at 5 a.m. this morning, and she was just talking about the hysteria of moving people. She had just landed, and it was the afternoon trying to get checked into a hotel and forced to seek higher ground with her family.
Thankfully, she had a rental car, because for folks that you don't know the area, you know, what do you do in that situation? So
and thankfully, she took heed. You know, there's some people that would not, and so grateful that she did, and all is well so far.
Hopefully, she can get back to enjoying your trip to
Hawaii.
Exactly.
Oh, goodness. So, yeah, we can't complain here, right? I mean, we all like to complain about Michigan weather every season, but we do have some changes in store. Of course, that comes with wet weather. So we do have a little bump in the road to get through. I mean, perfectly. On the hump day, we'll get over that bump, and then the rest of the week will be cooler. So we have some inclement weather riding along the tracks here of that frontal boundary. It's moving to the east, and so that's going to be the wet weather that we will encounter later today, going into your Thursday. And then a cooler air mass will begin to sink in behind this front, and we will have cooler, drier air to round out the work week. And so temperatures at this hour, still either side of 70. We have risen to 75 in Grosse Ile, 74 at Metro Airport, 71 in Pontiac, and it is a little muggy out there as you step outside, and we hold on to that humidity. So forecasted 80s today will get us into the low 90s with the heat index. So that's what the feels like temperature will be, close to 90 later this afternoon. So that doesn't really put us at a major heat risk. At this point, I feel like we're kind of used to it as much as you can be, because we have had a stretch of 90s with near triple digit heat indices. But you get just south of the state line here, we're talking the Ohio River south into the Gulf, up the eastern seaboard, and still major to extreme heat risks across the eastern portion of the country. So today's forecast here, mid to upper 80s, and most of the day is dry. We have the increasing clouds, but around the dinner hour, I'm not going to rule up a pop-up downpour, but it becomes a little more numerous after sunset and certainly more widespread going into tomorrow morning. So there's that little blip that we have potentially around 6, 7 o'clock or so. But after 10 is where you start to see more of these downpours start to roll through the area. Now, the heaviest rain tomorrow, likely probably Washtenaw, Wayne County south. But we're all getting some of that rain, so don't think that you dodge it. We will have widespread showers to start your Thursday. And once we in the afternoon, we'll start to see that taper off a bit, but we won't rule out some lingering showers mid-afternoon that'll be on the lighter side before we really dry things out and then pull back that cloud cover come Friday. The first pitch at Comerica Park today is 1:10, so it's a day game, which is good because we don't have any of that wet activity out there throughout the earlier part of the afternoon. It'll be later on today, so we get that game in without a rain delay, but it will be hot. It's going to be steamy, mid to upper 80s throughout the game, and feeling a little warmer with that heat index. But check out what happens. We fall into the upper 70s for highs both tomorrow and Friday. Now, you're not enjoying that cool down as much tomorrow because of the wet weather, but with the drier air come Friday, that's going to be welcome relief, and we will have seasonal low 80s with sunshine for the weekend. However, we were talking about wet weather for us tomorrow. Well, all of that's going to be shifting off towards Canton, Ohio. And so there will be shower and storm chances in the forecast if you were heading to the Lions game as they take on the Chargers in Canton, Ohio. 8 o'clock kickoff come tomorrow. Plan for 70s at that time, but you might need to pack a poncho. All right, your full forecast here. We will be on either side of 80 over the next few days, getting back in the mid 80s early next week. What I really do want to point out, though, check out the overnight lows at the end of the week heading into the weekend. We fall into the upper 50s, so maybe it's time to put a s'morecast together for the weekend. We'll have cooler conditions for a bonfire and open the windows. Good sleeping weather.